Right, I'm back for part 2 of sewing with jersey, and let's carry on making those baby leggings. And now I'm going to show you an alternative attachment for your machine to make your life a whole lot easier. So let's get sewing. So if when you're sewing using your normal foot on your machine and you find that there's loads of puckering and stretching on your fabric, you'll find that it's either all bunching up like this all the way along, or it's like really lumpy and wavy all the way along. Now, in a previous video, you may remember me talking about a jersey top I made, my briar top, and the seam at the bottom, the hem that I did, was really, really wavy. Now, after people told me why, it's because I was stretching the fabric too much as I'd sewn, and sometimes even if you don't mean to, it just means that your feeders are feeding too much, well, too little of the fabric through it, so that it's stretching it as you're stitching. So you might not be touching it very much and stretching it as you go, but your machine might be stretching it. So you want something that can keep feeding it through. Now, you can play around with the tension, the presser foot tension, or you can get one of these. Now, this is a quilting foot or a walking foot. So quilters use them for doing like really thick quilts and putting them together. But after talking to my mum and her friends about it, they said it is your best friend when it comes to using stretch fabrics, because it basically keeps the feed of the fabric at a really good constant level, and it just slowly walks the fabric underneath as you sew. So now I'm going to do the exactly same again, but I'm going to show you the difference it makes with one of these. On this foot, this lever here needs to be above your needle holder here. So just make sure that it is above it if you have this foot. Otherwise, you'll find your needle won't go down. I have made that mistake before, and I couldn't work out why it was happening. Right. So I've pinned this cuff together again, just make sure it's nice and neat and flat. And we're just going to do exactly the same as we did before, but this time with the walking foot. Right, pretend I haven't already made a mistake, but it was on the straight stitch before. So let's try that again. But I was so happy with how it was looking. It's the worst thing. Just look how easy the jersey goes through it. Look at that, it's so neat and flat, no puckering whatsoever. Oh, amazing. So if you want to get into sewing lots more jerseys than you have before, then try it on your normal foot first and see how you go. If you don't want to invest in a walking foot, I promise you will be able to do it without. It just might have a bit, you might need a bit more time just to play with the pressure, the tension, and which zigzag to use. So get some scrap jersey and just have a go first. If not, buy a walking foot. It's the next best thing, and it will help you. It just makes life a lot easier, and it makes the worry of stretching things too much go out the window. You don't have to worry about that because it will never happen on this foot. But if you're like me and you have an overlocker, you're going to want to do everything on the overlocker because it's so much easier. So the rest of it I'm going to show you on the overlocker. Right, so I'm going to do like on most baby legging patterns, you do the leg seams first. So if I hold it up like that, you should see that that will be the crotch here, and that will be the inside of the leg. So I've pinned this inside leg first, and we're going to sew both of those together. And I'm just going to use my overlocker. Now overlockers do love stretch fabrics. They're really easy. So if you have one, you'll know what I mean. Use it to your advantage. So I'm just going to do both inner leg seams, and then we're going to sew the crotch. Again, try not to stretch or move your fabric as you're sewing. You're just steering it through the machine. You don't need to pull on it, you don't need to push it, and you don't need to stretch it. And make sure you take your pins out as you're sewing, otherwise you will have a nasty surprise. See, once you've got your first line of overlocking stitches done, you can see that you can still stretch the fabric, there's still movement, and I mean, the overlocker just wins every time. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie off my ends, and then I'm going to do the other leg. Notice how when I pin, I go over, under. I just find it holds the fabric together a bit more. It doesn't move as much, and when you're sewing stretch fabrics, that helps a lot. So I just find that that gives it more stability when I'm putting it together. So now I just need to do the waistband in the exact same way I did the cuffs, and then we can do the crotch seam. Okay, so how we do the crotch seam now is that we turn one of our legs inside out. So you can see that's one half of the leggings there. And then we're just going to line up the inseam that we've done, and put it inside the other leg, making sure that those inseams are in line with each other. So I'm just going to put that one on there, and then put this one over the top so that they're inside one another. Now, one side of the leggings is the back and one side is the front. Now you can always tell this by putting that seam in half together and just seeing which raw edge is higher than the other. So can you see that when I put them together, this one is higher? That will be the back of your little baby leggings. So we need the leg seams to point towards the back rather than towards the front. So we're just going to make sure that we pin them in that direction towards the back, so that the inseams are facing the back. So again, I'm just going to pin this all the way along. So it should look like that. And you're going to pin all the way along there from one side to the other. So once it's pinned, it should look like that. God, the lighting in here is terrible. I hope you can see this all right. So we're going to start on one end, and we're just going to sew all the way around to the curve and then carry on up the other side. So the only thing to watch out for, especially if you're sewing it on your overlocker and you have your cutter down, make sure there's nothing underneath it as you sew, because you do not want to cut a huge hole in the crotch. Just be really, really slow and careful. There's no need to rush. And voila! So I'm just gonna knot this off again, and then I'll show you what that looks like the right side out. So once you've turned them inside out, you should see your little baby leggings taking shape like that. I think they're adorable. So now we are going to add the waistband and the cuffs. Now, this is probably the trickiest part on small clothing like this, because the cuffs are always smaller because they want to be tight around the waist and tight around the ankles. So they're still stretchy, but you will need to stretch the cuffs to fit the legs. So I'm going to show you a quick tip on how to do that really, really neatly. Okay, so you may find that you see this problem. See how much smaller that is? But this is what size you want it to finish at, and this has to be gathered into that size. So the way you do that is really, really simple. By the way, this waistband is basically as we did it, but just folded wrong sides together. So where those two lines join up, the seam there, you're going to put a pin in there. Okay, so once you've got your pin on that seam, you're going to lie it flat, half in half, making sure that that pin is on the edge where that seam is. So you're going to flatten this out neatly, make sure it's nice and flat. So now we're going to put another pin in this edge. So where it's folded, pinch it together and just put a pin in there. Now you can open out and then put the pin in properly, so that it's not going to fall out. Now you're going to do it again, but this time you're going to bring both pins together in the middle, and then you're going to put a pin in these edges as well. Now you've got 4 points that are in the perfect corners on your waistband, and you're going to do the same technique on your actual leggings. Okay, so there's my 4 pins in a perfect square. So we're going to do exactly the same on the waistband. So now we are going to slip this over the top. Now, if you've got a pattern fabric like me, make sure that when you then turn that up, your teddy bears are going to be the right way. So I'm going to have mine that way, so my teddy bears are upside down. Well, the right way up now, to turn the right way up before. So I'm going to slip this over the top. Now you want the back seam of the waistband to line up with the center of the back of your leggings. So this seam here. So these pins are going to join together. So make sure that where that seam is, that's the straight seam there. That line will line up with that line there. So I'm just going to put those together, take one pin out and then pin them both together. And you're just going to repeat this on all 4 corners. And there we have it. So now all you're going to do is the baggy bits in between that are still on the leggings, you now need to stretch the drawstring band and then pin those in place. So again, go halfway between the waistband and then go halfway between the leggings, and then you're just going to join those pins together so that when you're sewing it on the overlocker, you can stretch it between these points. You want as many points as you can manage, so that you're stretching them gently, but at the end of the day the overlocker is just joining them together. It's not lining them up. You need to make sure that these are all going to line up. So I'm just going to carry on filling in these parts and then we'll go to the overlocker. Okay, so here comes the fiddly bit. We're now going to have to stretch it as we sew. And yes, I know I told you not to stretch it, but now you have to stretch it. So you want to start at the back, at that center back seam on the waistband. And I'm just going to stretch the bit before that, get it under the overlocker, and then we're just going to stretch slowly between each pin as we go. Do not rush this, take your time with it, do tiny little presses on the pedal all the way around. just make sure that you're constantly checking that it's lined up, and don't take out the pins too soon. Right, so I'm just going to double check that I haven't missed anywhere, because it does happen. So I'm just going to fold it back the right way around, and then I'm just going to check all the way along the seam line on whether there's any gaps or holes where the jersey's moved as I've sewn. But so far it all looks pretty good. Oh, my back seam didn't line up perfectly. Oh, that's so annoying. It's like 2 mil off. Oh. But so far, all good. Perfect. So I'm just going to knot this off, and then I'm going to repeat the same technique with the cuffs. Now they are smaller, so just again, take your time on the cuffs. So here is my finished pair of little baby leggings with a yoga waistband and cuffs, and I'm actually really happy that I added like a little odd cuff. I know it's because I ran out of fabric, but I think it looks quite cute. So yeah, I mean, obviously this is gathered because of stretching to the waistband and the same at the ends, but these seams are all lying flat and this seam is very neat. So I hope that this video helped you. I hope that I've made it look easier than you thought it was. So I really hope you enjoyed that video and you've made your first pair of adorable baby leggings. I'm making a lot of baby clothes at the moment because my best friend is pregnant. So I've become a bit obsessed with just making tons of cute tiny miniature outfits. But I really hope this video has helped you and has made you less scared of sewing with jersey fabrics. Please comment below if you have any questions. I will try my best to answer them. I'm not an expert on this, and a few experts might comment on this video and tell me that I've done it all wrong, but I promise you this is how I've done it and this is how it's working for me. And so far it's fine. Like, I haven't had any panics. I haven't had like a throw my machine out the window moment. It's not as difficult as you may think, and I really, really want you to just have a go, because that's the only way you're going to learn. Yeah, have fun with it. I mean, jersey fabrics are the life of me. Like, half of my wardrobe is in jersey, and even think before I started making, there's a lot of things out there made in stretch fabrics. So, well, once you learn jersey, you can make anything. So yeah, have fun, like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to those of you who have already subscribed. I'm like over 3,000 subs now. Like, I just can't believe it. So thank you so much. And have fun making things with jersey. Just enjoy it. I promise you, it's not as scary as it seems. See you next week, everyone. Happy handmade.